Last Christmas reminded me of the famous Christmas story, but there wasn't a baby in sight and it didn't take place in the Middle East. But it was most definitely a Christmas story. See, 4 days before Christmas was the beginning of her lousy bout of COVID. She emailed and called the appropriate family members to let them know that she wouldn't be hosting Christmas dinner. She texted the next door neighbor to decline the Christmas Eve dinner invitation, and she let people know they would have to fill in for her for the activities that she was to lead over the holiday. Welcome to Calm in the Chaos, where we are an interfaith center learning from all faith traditions, but today focusing on the lessons of Jesus. And so the illness colored everything about her Christmas. She couldn't visit anyone. She missed the office party, and of course, most people didn't want to visit her either. But people did bring gifts in the form of soup, groceries, and in the form of texts and phone calls to make sure she was okay. And that's where Christmas comes in. Her friends and family acted with the love and attention that reflects the same kind of love that was taught by many spiritual leaders. But at this time of year, we focus on the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. See, Christmas isn't really about a baby in a manger, romanticized with talking sheep and rich kings in gorgeous robes who visited later. By the way, why are their pageant robes always pristine without dirt or sand or mud? They've traveled possibly 900 miles from the east, which was probably around Babylon at the time. They trekked through deserts for perhaps a couple of years, and in every pageant, they look perfect. Well, okay, that's a whole different story. It's easy to make Christmas about a baby, just as easy it is to make politics about unborn babies. See, we don't have to invest anything in easy stories about babies except our passion. We don't need to actually do anything to celebrate the nativity scene except to decide where to place the plastic or ceramic figures. We love to romanticize so much that we typically sing Silent Night at a tempo that makes it last as long as possible when we hold our candles aloft on Christmas Eve. I apologize, I do. I apologize if I'm being too cynical, but so let me return to the point. The word Christmas began as Christ's Mass, a celebration of Christ. And not just the baby either, but rather an anticipation of what was to come, how he would live his life. He was a prophet who exemplified all the goodness that we humans might attain if we follow his lead. To the point, we celebrate George Washington's birthday and Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, their national holidays. But in both of those cases, we mostly study, discuss, and honor what they did as adults. And so I would like to do the same with Christmas. Oh, I'm putting up my creche and I'm going to church to sing Silent Night, but I'll keep it in perspective because the real deal for me is the people who brought soup and texted the sick woman. Living out the ideals of Christmas, doing the work with unconditional love. That's what Christmas is for me. In that light, I'll just offer that many people who do not believe in a Christian path are great at acting with compassion and forgiveness and loving kindness that began with that baby. And so, my question is, does it matter that you are a professed Christian at Christmas in order to do the right thing? I'm not sure it does. I knew a woman who was questioning faith in any sort of God at one point in her life, but one Christmas, she taught her children the wonderful gift of giving. She knew of a neighbor who had just asked her addiction ridden husband to leave and it would leave her and her young son alone, but it was the right decision to make. Her family lived a few states away and would not be helping her at the holiday time, so our woman, who was not following any kind of a God path, and her children, excuse me, shopped and wrapped gifts for the woman and her son. They packed them into a very large gift bag and set the alarm on Christmas Eve for deep into the night. They rose, bundled up, and drove to the house of the woman and her son and left the bag of gifts at the door to be found early the next morning. Every present had a sticker on it that said, "Love, Santa." Now, this deed is an example of the loving energy that doesn't belong to any one religion. See, I still believe that the work of Christmas can be celebrated by anybody. Viewing through an interfaith lens, I see many of my Unitarian, Wiccan, Baptist, Jewish, and Muslim friends being filled with the overarching essence of beauty and goodness that permeates humanity at its core. Some people call this the cosmic Christ, but I would like to think we need a new term that doesn't limit our thinking to one religion. Maybe we could call it the universal essence or the loving energy. Here's what Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, said. "I think God is on earth inside every living being. What we call the divine is none other than the energy of awakening, of peace, of understanding, and of love, which is to be found not only in every human being, but in every species on earth." This year, I'm telling a new Christmas story, a story of how hope and joy, peace and love are shown in our actions, not just in our decorations and our music and pageants of darling children dressed in bathrobes and sandals. All of those rituals are important, don't get me wrong. They're important to connect us to our Christmases of the past and to pull our biological and chosen families together. But the big deal for me isn't a baby. It's the lessons that we were taught from the grown man. I'll close with a quote from theologian Brian McLaren. "The purpose of the Christian faith is clear and simple. It is not an evacuation plan to heaven, but a transformation plan for earth. A transformation plan built on the strategy of helping people become loving human beings who build loving societies, following the loving example of Jesus. After 2,000 years, it's about time for the Christian religion to get serious about its prime directive." Yes, it's about time for us to see God as not a human-like father or grandfather who lives somewhere in an unseen world called heaven. It's time for us to let go of the notion that what we do while in mortal form will earn us a place in that so-called heaven. It's time for us to focus on the here and now, to continue to build bridges between people who disagree, to march for justice, to speak up when someone says something hateful or hurtful, to call out those who so easily divide us, to heal the binary systems of us versus them. It's time to stop looking towards the future when some of us plan to meet Jesus and begin to act like him right here. It's time to see the holiness and value in every face we meet today. Every face. Because we are all divine sparks from the same energy source. We're all pieces of the same puzzle. We make mistakes, we hurt one another, and then we forgive and rebuild the village. It's time. Time for some of us to romanticize the baby for a bit, but then time for all of us to move forward and act on the lessons that the man taught us. Blessings on all.